friends, welcome to Uru TV. Please subscribe, like, comment, share. Thank you so much for following us. Today we are with Dr. Nyakundi Moseti. We are going to talk about men in health.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Nelly, for having me. It's a pleasure to talk especially about African men's health, Kenyan men health. Thank you for having me.
Wow. So, when it comes to men, what?
Yes, when it comes to men, most men, they go to hospitals. When you see a man saying, I'm going to hospital, even you being a wife or being your father or whoever, however you're related, is seriously sick. So how would you advise men? When do they need to see the doctor? And how often? Do they have to wait to get sick?
But Nelly, I think the first thing we need to look at is what's the root cause of this issue that we are seeing, that men don't want to go and seek health care. What's the root cause? I think from the analysis I have taken a look at, is that African men, especially Kenyan men, we are divided into clans or tribes. In the old days, men used to be warriors. Men used to be the people to protect the community. And the men were perceived to be very strong, to be the protector. Over time, this thing has gone on and on until whereby men feel like when they are sick and they say they are sick, it can be seen as a sign of weakness. That's why now we're having these diseases. Men are sick, but they feel like, oh, if I tell my wife I'm sick, or I tell so and so I'm sick, it's a sign of weakness. And the other thing I feel is that men are providers, especially in Africa. Men are providers for our family. So for a man to provide for the wife, to provide for the children, there is so little resource left for a man to go and take healthcare preventive measures. It's like, first I have to take care of my wife, I have to take care of my children, then I come number 3. So limited resources and the cultural mentality or beliefs is what is killing our men. That's what I can say.
Okay, when you talk about that, I know we have so many men there, so many family members there, wanting to hear from the doctor to know, how can I help? And what are the main, because you see, there are so many diseases that were not there during olden days, but they came to be, and most of them are terminal. Nowadays, if you hear a man is sick, you start with a tummy ache. If you hear someone has a tummy ache and is in hospital, that person, it says that person has been sick for years. He's in his last stages of life. So you, as a doctor, with good knowledge of how the African way and the current ways, what would you advise a man out there? What should they look for?
I think, thank you, Nelly. I think one thing we have to look at is that what's the cause of these diseases, men diseases in Africa, in our community. The first thing I think is the change of lifestyle and food. When you look at the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even the 70s, people used to live close to 100 years or more than 100 years. But nowadays, for a man to hit 60, it's almost like a miracle. So what went wrong? So when I do some analysis, I feel like food has something to do with it. How? When you look at the 80s and the 80s and the 90s, this is the time when fertilizer chemicals was introduced to our populations, especially in Kenya. Let me give one example. There is this powder called amvi that we used to preserve maize with. That thing came, we can go to the shamba, harvest maize, and then we spray it. Once we spray that chemical, then we put our maize in the granary, or we put that maize in the sacks. 2 weeks after that, we are consuming the same maize with that amvi chemical. And that chemical was containing mercury. So during that time is where there was a spike of cancer. These cases of cancer we are seeing might have started in the 80s, in the 90s, when these kind of chemicals were introduced. Same with the preservative chemicals. We also saw what? A rise in the spraying chemicals, where we used to have aphids. Remember the time the cypress were attacked in the whole of Kenya, those small doodles that used to kill the cypress? And then what did the Western world give us? They gave us chemicals to spray. So the same chemicals we were spraying our sukuma wiki, our greens, and consuming in the evening. You find a mama spraying those chemicals in the morning. In the evening, the same greens are on the table, not knowing that that is number one cause of cancer. So the kind of food that we have been consuming has greatly contributed to the diseases that we are seeing, not only on men, but women also included. We are seeing a very sharp increase of cancer cases. And the last thing I can say is about prevention, where you find that in Kenya, unlike in the developed world, where we have primary care, in Kenya we don't have primary care, where at least you go to the hospital once a year. Even though you are healthy as a man, you go to the hospital, then you get your blood pressure checked, your blood sugar checked, they check your kidney functionality, and they give you a green light that say, oh, you are okay. But our men, even if you pay money or you don't pay money, we don't go to the hospital. You wake up, you feel, you are okay, and that's the end of the story. So we, the men, we miss primary care. And actually, a lady can go to the screening for primary care, not even knowing that she's getting primary care. But for a man to go for primary care, a man will tell you, oh, I'm okay. Why am I going for primary care? I'm not sick. So that's where we have the biggest challenge with healthcare for men, especially for Kenya.
So, Dr. Yakunda, I have a question. You talked about the chemicals, because now chemicals are everywhere.
Yes.
Now, there's no weekend where we can avoid those chemicals. So what do we do when it comes to those chemicals? When we buy the food, like what can we do so that we don't eat those chemicals?
Well, that's a very complex topic and a very challenging topic. So these chemicals, as they were introduced, let's remember that even the fertilizer that we use, nowadays you cannot plant anything that can grow without fertilizer.
But they say it's organic. When you go to the store, it's organic.
That's in a different world. But now in Kenya, nowadays from maize, we grow maize, beans, you put fertilizer, you grow it, there is top dressing, and then there is topping. Now they have gone a notch higher. You see, there is this chemical we used to grow flowers. There is greenhouses that we grow flowers, and then we export these flowers to Europe, to America. So this same chemical is the same chemical now they are bringing to our homes, to our villages, and spraying saga and managu. And then you go to the market, you find these great,
They looking
great
good.
looking saga, managu, and you
Big
find
leaves.
and you feel like this is organic.
That's what you
That's
go
what
for.
I
That's
want.
what you go for. I want that one. And then not knowing that these greens, they have been sprayed. That growing fertilizer, they spray it, they grow flowers, but now they're using it to grow greens, and that's a number one cause of cancer. That green, those saga, those managu, that's sukuma wiki, it consumes that chemical, grows, and goes through our mouth right away. So that's why you see these cancers, ovarian cancer, and all this men cancer and everything coming from food that we consume. So the notion that in Africa or in Kenya we are consuming organic, it's a dream. It's not.
It's not organic anymore. It used to be.
But get this, in the US, when you say that you are growing organic, you are held accountable that you have to prove that that is organic. In Kenya, we assume everything is organic,
everything is
which
organic.
is totally different.
So it's not organic anymore.
It's not organic anymore unless you grow your own greens. And then I encourage you this, instead of using fertilizer, why can't we use manure?
But the problem here is if you are planting, let's say you're planting maize, the neighbors here are using those fertilizers. They are minding, they are maize looking healthy. You too, you want to use it. Because at the end of the year, you want to know that you're getting happy.
I think the main here, like most people in Kenya worry about who is going to buy, not how it's gonna do to what.
Exactly.
Who is going to buy?
The big harvest.
It's a big harvest. It's not a healthy. That's up to you.
It's a sign.
Yeah.
So I feel, number one, what we need to do, it's first to test our soil. Because all this about 20, 25 years ago, we have put so many chemicals into our soil. If we have agricultural extension officers from the counties to come to our little farms, take soil samples, test soil samples and say, hey, Dr. Gideon, your soil here is too much of this chemical. What you need to do is to put this base to reduce the acidity level of this chemical, or even you don't have to grow anything this year because your soil has become poisonous. So to educate our people so that our people can know how our soil is doing. Also, you know, in Kenya we plant anything everywhere. But can we test our soil and know that this soil is good for fruits, this soil is good for mahindi, this soil is good for tea, and this soil is good for nothing? We can modify it to be like this.
We
Instead
found
of
out after waiting, nothing comes out from the ground, and then you're like, next time I'll find the
Yeah, I remember when we used to have 401k in schools when we were young.
Yes.
They used to have this plot. We plant beans, this plot maize, this plot sweet potatoes, and then the next year you plant different things. And we used to have a lot of food. They never used to plant the same
Maize,
food
maize,
in the same portion.
that is now that's where we lost it.
I think we did, yeah.
If we could have proceeded with that, those people who we were children, we are grown. If the same thing could have been continuously engraved into our brains, we could be doing very good. But now we leave our farmers to run by themselves,
Yeah.
to do anything they think.
I'm on my own, doing my own
Yeah.
stuff.
And you know, sometimes there comes also local chemistry. You plant your maize, they don't grow. Your neighbor's maize grow, and you start pointing to your neighbor and saying, "Hey, why did you? What did you do?
What did you do to my maize?
What
How
did you do
come
to my
mine
maize?
is
But
growing?
your eyes are stopping my maize from growing.
So yes.
Back to the main health.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, how many times should men go to the hospital to get checked?
Well, that's a very good question, because personally I've been involved in very challenging cases. I remember there was this mzee from Tabaka. This mzee was having a UTI, a tract infection. A simple thing. So this mzee goes to the hospital, And then they said, oh, you are very sick, we have to do operation on you. I don't know what they were operating on. They do an operation, the mzee gets septic, gets so sick, and the mzee starts rotting from down upwards with maggots. So by the time I went to see this mzee, he was a half death. What kind of care are we giving our men? Look at this mzee who called me 2 months ago from Keroka. He had a heart condition and his hips had swollen. He had gone to Tenwek without care. He was referred to Kericho to go get an EKG reading. You can imagine somebody being referred from the village from Keroka to Tenwek to Kericho. Kericho, there was no cardiologist. Now to Nairobi to get a simple EKG reading to see what's the problem.
And in between, this person lose patient that he might die.
He lost patient and he came home. That's when he called me. He called me from home that I have lost it. I've gone to Tenwek, I have gone to Kericho, I've gone to Nairobi, I'm home to die.
Yeah, let me die.
Actually, I had to consult this one doctor from Kisii who went and found that there was a lot of heart around the sac which holds the heart. They went with a needle, sucked that water out, and the man is very healthy right now from Keroka.
Thank God.
There is another case from Tombe, Bogetutu. This gentleman, this mzee, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He was told to go to Nairobi for surgery. Luckily enough, we were able to bring the mzee here. When we took him to the hospital, they found that there were signs of cancer. They gave him medication. The mzee is healthy and happy.
Amen.
So now the problem is there is no proper care. A man a man should, at least if you are healthy, should go to the hospital once a year. Get checked.
At least.
And when you are over 40 years or 45 years and above, you must be checked prostate cancer once a year. That's the rule. But if we don't have doctors, we don't have healthcare facilities, then equally there is a challenge. But in the rest of the world, actually, it's a recommendation that as a man, when you are 45 and above, get prostate cancer checked annually. So even if you are healthy, men, go to the hospital, get your blood pressure checked. If you have blood pressure, there are medications you can take to contain your blood pressure. Not that you wait in the house until when people are like, oh,
they put you on the
they are pushing you around on your deathbed.
I think you put it right, because when you talk of prostate cancer, so many men back home in Kenya have lost life because of prostate cancer. And let me tell you, you will never hear from anyone in the family that your dad or your uncle died of prostate cancer until he's dead. It's like the people talk about it in harsh voices.
Yes.
They don't want
yes.
people to hear.
Yes.
Unlike here, where people
are exposed.
They are exposed and they're not shy. They don't shy off to say it.
Yeah.
I think people should learn to, there's no secret in the disease.
That's true.
People should learn that there's no secret. It gets to a point where you can't hide it.
And then, Nelly, if I might deviate slightly, there is this program I air from the radio station in Kenya every Wednesday at noon. Even the women, I discovered even talking about menorrhagia, where certain ladies overbleed during the monthly periods. Nobody talks about that.
And we have no idea we are overbleeding.
Yes, they don't even know that how many days should I be bleeding? Is it through? Is it 1 week? Is it 2 weeks? Why should my friend have a cycle of 3 days and I have a whole week?
2 weeks.
Am I having a problem? They don't talk.
I think that will be our next.
Yes, I have presented that in Minto FM. I did that show and it touched a lot of ladies who are suffering from this. So the same thing with prostate cancer. A disease is a disease.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that you are suffering from this or that. No.
People talk in harsh voices.
Yes. We need to come up in the open.
Someone is dead.
Yes.
And it's not that you hear everybody saying, you're like, did you hear what he said?
People whispering.
They say man disease. If you hear someone say man disease, that's how what they say. If you hear someone, oh,
Anyway, my grandpa died from
Men
men
disease.
disease last
Yeah.
year.
So-
When he died and they went to hospital to be checked, guess what? He was admitted. When I asked him, my uncle, what's going on? He says men disease.
Yeah.
I went back to my mom asking,
What's
what
men
men
disease?
What men disease?
yeah, it's
So-
not a
He
disease.
hide it until he couldn't
And you
hide
see
it no
here
more.
we have
Yeah.
so many people who are taking the
Yeah.
medication for that, and they live for long. I don't know whether
Yeah.
people know back home, like the earlier you get the detected, the longer you live.
And also, there is the love of money in healthcare facilities. There are some healthcare facilities that have come up just to make money. You go there as a man, you are told you are stage 4, stage whatever. They want 4 million to do a surgery, to do what, and then there's an infection. There's no traceability. You get infection, you die. You lose the family loses the 4 million. So also we need to educate our healthcare providers what to check for, how to educate our people, and also how to minimize infections during these procedures or during these exams. So it is a partnership between our men, our families,
Yes.
and healthcare providers.
Last question before we close up. I feel like men are becoming more difficult, more challenging to go to be checked. So their wives encourage the husband to go to get checked. And if he say no, should you pull him? Say, today I'm taking you, let's go.
I think before you talk about it, it's kind of difficult. It's I feel like the life you lead when you're old is it's how you started off.
The life you lead when you're
When
young.
you started off, if I'm used to pushing you, I'm used to pushing you as my husband, that's our life that we're gonna lead. It'll be normal for me and for you. But it gets to a point when you don't have that life, kids come in and push you, which is for you being the father, you feel like this is too much for me. So I feel like if maybe you might tell us something different, but I feel like it should be the perception. The
So
perception of the person you're talking.
But the person is not interested, and you want your husband to live long. You encourage him. You're not pulling him from the house to go. You're just encouraging him, like, sweetheart, please, let's go get
I
checked.
think I don't know. Maybe it's educating them. You
So-
know,
so,
someone is difficult.
it's pretty interesting. The key thing is education. And let me use an example. 2 weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago, we had a funeral in Nyamaiya. And then I wanted to use this as a model to educate my people. So I said, I gave somebody a video camera, and I told this person, as they are bringing the body to their home, I want you to video record me everything until the day ends. So he recorded the video, and I looked at that video. In the video, I saw 99.9% of the women were weeping and were crying. 0% of the men were crying. They were holding it. What they were doing is to help the women, put them down, calm them down, but there was no a single man who was crying.
But they say a strong man don't cry.
So that's now where culture influences wrong
Won't
things.
follow. Yeah.
So that's one example. So I used this clip. I called a group of people from that area, and I said I have something to share with you. And I walked with them through the funeral, how the body came, everything that happened, and I said, look at this lady. She's crying. She's expressing her feelings. But look at this man. He's dying inward.
Yeah.
Feeling it in.
So that worked very well for me to educate that community. And we need to do this to educate our people. And when it comes to a spouse, men and women, men understand their women. We understand you. We know that when you are not feeling well, I can go whisper and say, oh, your mom, she's not really feeling well. So the same way, women, you are multitaskers. Sometimes you understand, you have to understand your men and say, hey, today this mzee is not really feeling well. I have to do something, or I have to call his son, or I have to call his brother to make sure that he goes and gets checked. Sometimes it takes a convincing term to have them agree. Sometimes men need some sort of privacy. They don't want the husband put a line. So can I call ahead of time and make an appointment with a doctor so that when we go there, we don't put a line? So there's some things we can do to educate the men. There's some responsibilities we can be able to take as spouses to educate these men and know that yes, it's your health, you need to be responsible for it, but enable them, help them to learn how to take care of their health.
And sometimes they want to go there. They want to go in by themselves. It's okay.
That's okay. That's very okay. Like in the developed world, in the US, if you go with your spouse to a healthcare, you go by yourself if you choose to. It's very, very rare for you to go with a man because you want to express yourself, tell the doctor everything, how you are feeling. So if a man decides that he wants to go to speak to a doctor by himself, so long as you make sure that he gets to that office,
He gets that room.
he gets that room. Then once he gets that room, close it and then wait for the feedback. That's okay. That is privacy, and you need to respect it. And once that man comes out, don't ask him, hey, what did you tell the doctor? What did the doctor tell you? So if that man chooses to tell you the max he can tell you, that's okay. Take it. If not, that's okay, so long as he has talked with the doctor. So we need to educate our men, and also we have even to tell them what signs to watch out for. Some of them get stroke because they hold so much and then things go wrong. So we have to educate them. One, primary care, basic care. Once a year, get tested. A man, what are you going to get tested? Your kidneys, blood pressure, sugar, and your prostate. Those are the very key things that you have to be checked at least once every year.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we've had enough. All men out there, brothers, sisters, advise all the men around you, and let's get tested. There's no secret when you get sick. You don't want to realize you're sick when it's too late.
To live longer and enjoy life. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be seeing Dr.
Gideon
on our channel, encouraging people to go to be checked, encouraging us in healthcare, in a lot of things. So we'll see you guys next time.
we have more coming up.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to us.
Bye.
Bye.
How long?